I don't know. I don't know what happened in this one. I feel like he played worse. He should have been a little bit closer. He did have that dub in the qualifiers, like the GSL qualifiers. So I was kind of surprised that he died like that. I remember this game. I think Time did the. I think it's a 2x Reaper. He like specifically does that a lot. I'm actually not sure why. I do play a lot of like ladder on Korea actually, especially recently, and he's not the only one that does it. Sometimes they'll even like proxy it on the other side, like one and then one here. Basically, the reason why is because these days it's usually like seal this off pretty fast. Before it would be like 15 gas, so then you would have a factory first and then the second depot. What ends up happening now is like it's depot first and the second factory. And if you SCV scout and you can't see the other side, it's actually kind of hard to tell what's back here. So you kind of have to respect it a lot more. And I can actually learn from Percival too, which is cool. He's a really nice guy.
Oh.
Yeah, his English is actually really, really good. So, like, it's pretty cool because he got like he was on the same team as Maru for a bit, so he actually got some like input from Maru. So in a way, it's like whatever Maru told him, like he kind of told me, and it was like really cool because I feel like you don't really know what Maru knows or thinks unless you like speak Korean or you're a Korean Terran,
Yeah,
it's kind of like what's this guy thinking, yeah. And then I'm actually surprised he built this here, but Reactor first, I mean, yeah, he does this a lot, I'm sure you know. Time's just looking for a proxy. It's pretty tough to send the Reaper across. I think it's a little bit of a gamble if you send it straight across to scout. Some people will do that, but I think they're just, at least Time is just respecting it a little bit more. And then I also know Mario was doing a tank drop with this. He thinks it's better. The 3 Reaper 2 Hellion into a tank drop, which he thinks is better than the 2 Reaper 1 Hellion tank drop. So it has to do with the amount of units you have. Sorry, what?
Yeah, what's the reason for that, you think?
Yeah, I think it's to do with the amount of units you have. So you could tank drop here. I don't know if you can see my boxes, but like he'll put it specifically around this area where the tank can shoot the ramp, and then you'll have a tank, 4 Marines, and then let's say 2 Hellions, which is actually really good because if he has a Raven, which they normally always do have a Raven, you actually can kill the auto turret a little bit faster, so it does less damage to try to jump on this. And then you have the extra Reapers that can go this way. So it's just a lot more stuff that they have to account for. And I think it's a bit tougher to hold. And then, like, Mario probably is going to have, like, really, really good control, pretty smooth about it. And then I just feel like in TBT, especially with the way the Koreans play, if you're the one playing defensively, I think it's really, really tough to not take damage, funny enough, even if you have less stuff. You'll see a lot of times people will see someone moving out and then they'll kind of just try to stall them out in the middle of the map. And that's just to avoid like bleeding out stuff here. But I also think that's the reason why Mario likes playing that tank drop stuff. And like Clem too, for example. But yeah, this is just very normal openers. Oh, he won't go in there. And actually, I think he could have, to be honest. But the issue with like the Widowmine first thing is that your Cyclone's really late. So I don't personally like this. I know he was going to go for the Metamac drop, but I don't know. I personally don't like that. Not even sure. I feel like Mario plays a lot of reactor builds, and Kira does too. So I don't know what Time felt about that. And then yeah, here, just keeping the Cyclone high ground, right, so you don't lose it. Yep, there you go. And it's pretty like it's not bad, I think. Good job. It's these kinds of weird situations that I think make TBT really interesting. And kind of like, yeah, Mar might be, the best TBT player, but like, I don't know, I've personally also had situations where something really just stupid happened, where like they're on this side and I'm on this side, and it just happens to work out for me a bit better. So like I'm in the lead against somebody who's probably way better than I am. Like, I think it's a bit of a meme. Yeah, just defending on both sides, and then 2 Cyclone is really good. You might still have 2 Cyclone. I know he'll win 1, but sometimes you might see 2 Cyclone if opponent is maybe a little bit behind in the early game. And then let's say, for example, like Maru wants to do a tank push across because he has momentum. I don't know. Maybe there's a one Raven difference, and players will pick up on that too. Like especially depending on the openers. If I feel like, or if I know my opponent is down one Raven, I'm way more inclined to just like sit outside his base, or even like contest this just for that reason, because I'll have the extra, I don't know, auto turrets or whatever. Or sometimes what you'll do if you know that your opponent is ahead on one Raven or something like that, you might go two Cyclones, and then it's just easier to stall them out if they push out. But then you have to kind of rely on that because if they were to go across the map, then there's like a tank difference. So then now you're down a tank. So that's kind of like the trade-off. It really comes down to those, I don't know, like single units that you build. Like that was really close.
And,
Yeah. So
I'm gonna pause here. So there's a couple of guys. I think special, especially. And they yeah, he's the one I can think of that does it more than others. But still, we occasionally see like multiple Cyclone Magfield Accelerator. Is that just a precursor to Mech? Are we expecting to see that at all at Katowice, or is it kind of done now?
I personally don't think we'll see much of that. I honestly don't think Mech is that great in TVT.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, I think that's another reason why you don't see it that much. I know it's like I love special, and he likes to play that kind of stuff, and he likes to play funky, or maybe just like things that or maybe are not standard per se. And it probably will work occasionally. And I think it's a good thing for a tournament if you have a lot of variety. But I don't really think you'll see that too much. And I think it's definitely like seeing someone build three Cyclones in Magfield could be a pretty good indication that they're playing Mech. I guess not always, but I would probably assume that was the case. Of course,
Yeah.
always check to see that that's true. But yeah, just like a lot of early game skirmishes. This is very like, I don't know, Korean TVT to me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those early game skirmishes. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Would you say that time is basically a Korean Terran?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Actually, it's kind of cool. So like, so time actually streams. Not, I would say like whenever there's not a big tournament going on, he actually streams a bit. I think a lot of people don't know that. That's because he streams on the Chinese websites to his own community. But I've actually seen some of the streams from there, and it's kind of crazy. Yeah, like he definitely plays with Korean Terran. He has like really low DPI. Like he's really accurate with all his mouse clicking and all that kind of stuff. And then the builders he plays as well. So yeah, I honestly he's a Korean Terran.
Okay.
Definitely. But yeah, I was gonna say like this two barracks, like 2-1-1 off two bases is actually kind of I would say getting a little bit popular. I've seen this a bit on Korea. I think I'm sure you like seen 4GG streaming. Like 4GG does this a lot too. You even have a Raven with it, but this is a little bit common. I think it's good if you're playing maybe someone better than you are, because it's kind of random. It's like really aggressive, can get some damage done. The Raven going across, and some map vision, and then yeah, like this is kind of where the game was out. Of course, like I don't like you can tell he didn't expect this because everything is pointing this way to prevent like a siege up here. I think if he had a suspicion this was coming, then you have like two Vikings here, and then maybe the Raven stays home. You can actually see he F2'd it right here. All the Marines turn around.
Yeah.
So Mari's an F2er. There you go. Confirmed. That's dropping the auto turret. So yeah, like if you see something like this happening, definitely like there would be like a tank next to the main base. And that's like you even see that later on at some point because then doom drops become a lot more likely. So you kind of want to have that there. But this is like something that you didn't expect. And to be honest, like I actually didn't even see it until the Raven went across.
Yeah. Okay, so if you were to see that setup specifically, you got a Reaper in that was off in the middle of nowhere, what would your response be? Just the Vikings in the top left, tank in the middle, and then maybe the rest at home, just in case they kind of shimmy, because of course they could hit the main or decide to hit your natural.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to have one tank in the main, and then maybe even like a few units here. The Vikings, like, definitely in the airspace. Honestly, you could choose here or here. It's really hard, especially when you don't have that many Vikings, because there's like all this space that they could technically just boost into, and I feel like that's what makes this kind of annoying to deal with. But you're right. So like you would leave a tank here, maybe some Vikings like up here in the airspace, and then something that kind of sucks is that you don't have a lot of Marines.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if I leave two tanks here and he actually decides to go this way, then he drops on my two tanks, which is like a big issue there. So you would definitely want everything at home. The Raven would have stayed home for sure, and it probably would have sat on top of these two tanks so that you could use the auto turrets to help kill off the Marines there, or like buy time for something. But to be honest, what I really think Time was hoping for, and you can kind of see it too, was that Maru would actually have already been sitting at his third, and then you drop this, and Maru shifts kind of everything this way, and then Time kind of pushes down here into the third. That's what I think he was hoping for. Not that this is bad, but that would have been like ideal. And that's like what's really annoying about the opener Time does is that if you're playing the way Maru is, you have to wait a little bit longer to take this, because as soon as you take that, the overextension is like really, really hard to defend these. So that's why I think this build that Time's doing is gaining like popularity.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely experienced a lot on Korea, and it is really annoying to deal with. As you can see, like literally losing buildings, and actually didn't lose that many workers. I think Mars killed more workers.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you maybe some basic questions that even I know, but hearing your explanation can sometimes help. So when you are up against this, let's say like any kind of like 2-base focus Terran, what is the plan here? So you're gonna like kind of turtle a little bit till maybe a certain upgrade or effect or number of units, and then take your third CC. Yeah. Is he waiting for stim or combat shields or what?
I would wait for stim, and then what I would also honestly what I also do is actually I just put a sensor tower here and like have vision here, and this should deter him. And probably the biggest thing though, besides all that, is just having more tanks. So that you can still leave a tank here, but then also be able to leave enough here to defend this, or here, for example. On this particular map, it is definitely tough because there's also the likelihood that they go this way. So that's where the map vision comes in, right? Like Mar having a Marine here, which he wanted to do, and then like over here, and then over here. Like that's how you can, at least like I wouldn't say maybe not avoid, but at least know that they're coming ahead of time, and then that way you can keep the Vikings here. So it becomes like a really big map vision thing. And as soon as you have some map vision and probably more tanks, I would say he's got 3. He lost 1, so maybe 5 tanks is probably be good. Then you can take that third. But you can see like, yeah, your third base is later, but then the trade-off is, Time doesn't have 1-1 yet. He does have, more bio and medevacs, but he also doesn't have a third. So it's just like literally not dying. So it's okay to not take this as quickly, for the sake of, I guess, not dying. But yeah.
Yeah. And then flip side, when is this build for Time kind of a failure? When do you say like, aha, I got you. That was an inefficient build, and I'm the one that's winning now.
Honestly, any like quick tank push, like a tank drop, even like if R had done a tank drop version of this, I actually think he would have done a lot of damage. Especially like some people, you'll build a Cyclone, and then you actually swap the starport to factory to build a Raven, and then the factory will build its own type lab for a tank or a reactor for another barracks. So it's like no tank, 1 Cyclone, and it's just like a handful of Marines. So I feel like that's where it kind of disadvantages in like the real early game stuff. But I think anything aggressive, early game tank drop, even like a 2 tank double Raven push or something like that would be really good against this. And I think that's what Mar would have done if he would have probably seen it coming, but like he saw the second barracks really late.
Okay, yeah. So kind of anything that's going to aggress before the medevacs, like get across the map, because then it becomes maybe a bit of an awkward game. We've certainly seen those where it kind of hits a little bit too late, and the medevacs are kind of on their way. But if you can kind of pin them beforehand, then they got bigger problems in sending their medevacs across the map. Yeah, it's kind of
Exactly, yeah.
okay.
Especially for that stim pack too. Because then you just have like a bunch of no stim marines. You gotta pull some workers, and then I've done it where like I've had a tank here, and then I know my opponent is struggling to hold this, and I'll literally send another tank across, um, knowing that they're still pinned back, and I'm still hitting some of their marines. But and here you can kind of actually see what I was talking about earlier as well. Is like they'll do this a lot. It's just Korean Terrans sitting outside your base with the tanks. Actually, I think this is kind of funny too because I think Mara has more stuff here, and then Time has some a tank and a handful of Marines at home. And actually, if Mara wanted to, especially with the Raven, he could probably just leave his base. But yeah, this is like really common. Time is just trying to delay Mara's turn as long as possible and catch up with this sort of with his 1-on-1 and take his third base a bit faster. But yeah, you'll see this a lot, definitely. Tank stuff. That's so annoying, actually, especially on ping. By the way,
Sending the contain.
yeah, the contain. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm. You're trying to move your marines in time to not get hit by a tank, and then like all of them are just red now. It's actually pain.
Actually, it's an interesting point here. So the plan right now, a bit of a spoiler, is that everyone is apparently good to go to Katowice. So we're gonna have an offline event. What could you describe, I guess, the troubles in TVT for the cross server stuff? How much would you say the Koreans were affected by that? How much, did their skill decrease by 5% because ping is such a monumental factor in TVT, or is it more of an annoyance that you assume they kind of gotten over?
So honestly, something that I play all the servers. I'm West Coast USA. My ping to EU is not great. I think it's like 160. My ping to Korea though with the VPN is like 140, which is not terrible. That's actually pretty decent. So I play on both, and the style difference is pretty crazy. Mostly in terms of like their early game units and how the players control them. Like I've played, I don't know, a 5.9k Terran, some barcode, like I don't know. And he's just like owning me with the early game Reapers because he has no ping. And they're really aggressive with those early game units. And then I might play, I don't know, the first person that comes to mind is like Battle B on EU. He's right now he's like 6.3k, which is really good, right? 5.9 barcode. But I feel like the early game units and the control of those early game units to do some damage is actually a bit less. And I don't know if a part of it is like they don't feel like doing it, or another issue is like maybe not the control for it. But personally, I feel like the difference really comes from the early game unit control. And I was gonna say I forgot. Dang. But yeah, there's like I feel like there's a difference. And it's just more aggressive, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And the control is a bit better. So yeah, I mean, I think what you might see a lot is maybe the Korean Terrans will feel more encouraged to do something more micro intensive in the early game, like a tank drop or something like that. I don't think you'll see like proxy reapers. I think the general conclusion is that build sucks unless you're Maru. Just like 2-on-1 sucks unless you're Maru. That's the other one too. But yeah, I'll look that ping, by the way.
Yeah. Actually, I think that was an observer, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's actually a little bit tilting.
Yeah.
That happened to me when I was a random aside, but like I was playing Dream Pack and the admin turned off his computer with his toe. I'm playing Neeb and when the game is frozen, but yeah, and then this is a pretty big thing, right? Like as soon as Mara tries to take its third, like Time just drops some greens in. So yeah, like that's pretty normal. And, Mara leaves a tank. Actually, I think this tank just came out. Let me see, because I could be lucky. Not gonna lie. Okay, no, there's a tank here and there's another tank that comes out. So yeah, you can see it. But even just like this one tank here, like you could just drop on that and kill it really fast there. So I think he got a little bit lucky that this tank had just come out. But that's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes there is a bit of like it's true. So yeah, that's like exactly what I was talking about. And then Time will kind of just sit here and try to do something. But I would say that like Mario's probably the best player to deal with this kind of stuff. And that's what makes him so good. I think ideally you wouldn't want to be in this defensive position. And of course, like I'm sure Mario feels the same way. But I think that's where he really shines too, is being able to hold on to everything, and then kind of wait out for his advantage. So now I feel a bit more confident to move out. And I think part of that has to do with 2 medevacs worth of Marines is not that great when you only kill like a tank and maybe like a handful of workers. So not surprised to see him move out like this. It's just he doesn't have any map vision and time's already out on the map. So just like what I was talking about too, which is really nice, is that if you know your opponent is going to move out, you really want to stall them out here again so that they're not like sieged here and then you're going to kill like some random SCVs that are just kind of moving around. And then it's really annoying as well. You're trying to defend and then some of your SCVs aren't like, I don't know, I guess we like get tilted. It's like, we moved the SCVs away. Why are they still here? Like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Really annoying to think about when you're playing a tournament.
And then here we see that time, went for 2 medevac drop, then but 4 Vikings. Any thoughts on that? You're talking about him having to hold off on potentially being contained, buying as much time as possible, and then Maru got a Liberator, which is awfully scary if he got across the map. Is time building those Vikings kind of an anticipation of having that trouble? Or what reasons do you say the Vikings are mid?
Yeah, I would say the general conclusion is that you want to be able to start building some Vikings to be able to have some kind of air. I also think what he was hoping for is that Maru would pause to build the medevacs, and then he would keep building the Vikings too. I think the only person that maybe is really reluctant to even build the Vikings and go in for the air is Beyond. That's something I've seen a lot, and I think that's honestly something that holds him back. And like his TBT, I think he tries to play. I know that the game like the way he wants to play it, and it's really tough. You can't actually win any late game TBT without switching into air.
Right.
So it's really out of necessity. Like even if you're behind on air, like you could try to win with medevacs, but like once you have so many Ravens, it's like the utility is just so good, and people's controller tends to be really good as well. So then it's really good to like cast all the abilities and then you save all the Ravens. Yeah, it's definitely out of necessity, like needing to switch. You'll add in 2 medevacs, like how you need to, maybe even 4. But in this case, just 2, and then he'll go into his Vikings again. And then you should see like extra star points soon, at least from both of them. Liberator. I guess he just wants to give it away. Oh, where's his combat shields? Oh, it's so late.
It was, yeah.
This game was epic. And then 2 factories, tanks, and then it's pretty normal for them or in TBT for you to take your extra 2 starports. Usually around the time you land your 4th, that's just because the extra gas kicks in. And I guess in a game where Mario's maybe not as behind, this would have happened a little bit sooner, maybe closer to the 10-minute mark. You might see that, especially in a TBT where like everyone built Vikings and then nothing happened because everyone's just like defensive with Vikings. That happens sometimes too. So, 2 factory. We can see where Mario's like a little bit behind. Like his 2nd factory is a little bit later. He doesn't have a 4th. But good maps is camp, and I like that. Okay, wait. And then Time's being the aggressor here, which again I think is like the situation you want to be in. Even if I don't know, let's say he didn't have as many Vikings as he does, deal with this, and then Mario's trying to take a 4th. But yeah, like this is really good. Like if you're out on the map, especially in a TVT, and you have that map control, you can capitalize on these kinds of things. Where it's just like, oh, he's taking his 4th, and you happen to be here. Like that's so good. And that's really where that map control shines. Of course, like if Maru is able to get in position here and have the vision set up as he's coming ahead of time, then it's different. So that's kind of like the trade-off too. So trying to map like 2 chemispheres is really, really good to defend all your bases. No, I think Time is playing this well. I think I would like to see him have a bit more vision.
Yeah.
Okay,
he
so
doesn't
the
even build a
counterattack.
sensor tower in this game. I remember because we were pointing it out. We were like, it's a bit concerning against Maru. Kind of known for like his run bys, and then Time won the game, so it was fine.
Yeah, I don't know how beneficial this input is or like my personal experience, but like when I play better players and I'm in a position, I do tunnel vision. And I tunnel vision in a way where it's like, what can I do to win the game in the next 5 minutes? And I don't really think about what could happen. How they could lose the game in the next 5 minutes. And, maybe like one random base trade where Mario just like runs through the middle and then is sitting behind these tanks. Like that could literally just make you lose the game.
Yeah.
That you're winning. So I think the time kind of felt that. I think it's pretty normal. Which is also interesting because you mentioned earlier that it's going to be in person. So I wonder how that's going to play out for most people. Like, I imagine it's been a long time. Don't know
Yeah.
how they'll be feeling.
Well, things can still change in 2 weeks, but yeah. This game, I remember, like, it almost even looked like time was almost baiting it. He had everything back at home. Mario runs into it, and then gets clobbered back at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch the Hero Marine Mario series?
I did.
Okay, yeah. Is there any specific thing that you can think of why Hero Marine seems to do well against Mario, let's say in the early and mid game, and then falls behind? I want to like specifically what he does well, because I think we've kind of figured out why people falter against Mario even after they've gained a lead. We all know how good Mario is bringing things back and playing late game. But is there anything that you see as Mario's like weakness early and mid game? Is it the European Terran style kind of throws him off, or anything?
Did you see that interview that Crank did with Mario recently? Like a week ago, I think.
Oh, I don't think I did. I remember I wanted to check it out, but it was a bit busy.
So something he said was like, and I feel like every pro exaggerates this stuff, but I'm sure there's some truth to it. But he kind of determines his confidence based on the first game. And so like he says if the first game goes bad, he kind of loses confidence. I don't know if like for whatever reason Gabe just has a number. I think Gabe is also a really good standard Terran, and I think he has like also a really good late game. So maybe it's just like, I wouldn't say like Hero Marine is Mario, but maybe in TVT at least like Hero Marine being able to like be really good defensively and have decent late game in TVT is something that makes them just a bit more difficult to deal with. I can also recall like watching Clem versus Hero Marine, and I feel like when Clem loses too, it also has to do with some of the later game stuff with the Ravens and Gabe just like being able to hold on, and play that game out. So I feel like it has to do with that. But yeah, I don't know, that comment he made. I mean, it could be that a games got close and then maybe Mario lost a bit of confidence playing against Hero Marine. I actually don't know like how seriously that comment is. I feel like everyone says that. Everyone has their thing. Oh, like in the first 3 seconds, I know I'm going to win this game or something like that. But that was just interesting to me. I think a good interview. Actually, definitely recommend checking it out. But yeah, I would say it's something to do with that. That's my input. But yeah, just having all this map control is really amazing. Keeping it at home, that's something you want to do as well because you need to account for this too. Definitely lost plenty of games where I don't leave anything at home and I'm like maxed out here. And that happens. And I think that's kind of what Mario was hoping for, and just like trying to hold on here. But yeah, that's definitely like a like last straw hope kind of thing. Yeah, I kind of try to go for it here. And yeah, so that's exactly what you wanted. Like, this is definitely 100% the right thing to do. I think Time just like did a really good job of maintaining his advantage. I mean, maybe he did tunnel vision a bit and could have possibly played a bit cleaner. Like, for example, he hasn't switched into Ravens yet, which is something that he could have done. Definitely, like taking these 2 gases. But a part of it, I'm sure, has to do with him being out on the map and like I said earlier, like maybe tunnel visioning a little bit. In terms of like winning the game.
Yeah, you think it's tunnel visioning? Because I know Cure, after he tried going mano a mano, very similar builds with Mario, he was like, well, that's not working. And at one point, he even chose a game to specifically, a lot of the times, it looks like, anyways, you tell me, Terran players are staying on basically 5 barracks, 2 factory, and then adding on starports, because let's assume nothing like frantic is happening. But Cure and I think Time in this game, they went up to 8 barracks, and it seemed intentional. It seemed like they wanted to play more mobility based. Do you think this could be an intentional thing, or is it far more of the tunnel visioning? And then could the gases be what is indicative of that?
It also could be an early game thing, or maybe the early and mid game go a bit better for them, and they have momentum. So just continue to be aggressive with Marine tank and not go for the Raven and the extra starports. And also, yeah, you're right. Definitely not taking these gases is definitely something that indicates that the Terran is going to go for less of a starport centric composition and more of like this YOLO Marine tank stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it definitely could be something like that. I just still think that if you're not able to win the game doing something like that, and the opponent, Maru, whoever it is able to get that, that the ideal late game Terran composition, I think you really are in a tough spot, and you will have to transition at some point. So I guess that's the thing. Like in this exact scenario here, I guess it's good, because Maru's not able to stabilize at all. Like he's literally down like every base. And time has a lot of momentum. But maybe if something else happens where Mark does get the space up and he's able to defend everything, then I think time has to switch into air. So we can say something like that then.
Yeah, it seems like Mara really makes his opponents feel like they're in a catch-22. Either they have momentum against them and they try to use it with more mobility, and then he holds, and you're like, damn it. Or they're like, well, that won't work, so I'm going to go toe-to-toe with your late game, and that doesn't work either. So
yeah, exactly. Definitely. And, I also feel like this is why Innovation and TY were really good TVT against Martyr. And I feel like they were, like, during that time, the TVTs were a lot closer. I think Martyr is the TVT, well, just everybody in general, but, like, TVT in particular. And I think, like, those two guys were pretty good at the late game stuff as well. Maybe made it a little bit tougher for Maru to win the game that way, as opposed to like pretty much every game I see now is like if Maru, has an early game disadvantage and he holds on and he's able to play his late game, he pretty much wins, like guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sad watching him face his Kieran. Sad for
Kieran. Oh yeah. Yeah, literally, yeah, that's actually pain. There was it a GSL? No, I think Kier won it. No, there was a GSL Kier putting against TY, I think, right?
Oh, okay.
Like a long time ago, and he also got like 4-0'd.
Yeah, he beat Innovation after like coming back, and we were like, oh great, this must mean it's a good TVT finals, and then he got stomped. So
yeah,
Kier's maybe, you're right, maybe a bit of a choker.
I really like watching him play though.
Oh yeah.
Also, I don't know. This is kind of random, but I had this conversation with Zound the other day. As you know, like Zound also played Kier in Super Tournament, but Zound was that's Zound who to watch for TVP, and he told me to watch Kier, and then I was like, okay, cool, I'll find some Kier TVP, but then I can't find any, so now I'm sad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's. I think he's really good to like replicate. I think Maru is really hard to copy actually. I think Maru's really good to learn early game stuff, and where you want to be putting your units and how you want to scout. I think he's really hard to like copy his style in terms of like mid and late game stuff. And I think here, for example, is a bit easier to be. I feel like he's the people's hero. It's really good to take his builds. He has like some cool stuff, and it feels a bit better to try to play like Kier as opposed to like trying to play like Maru.
Oh.
Yeah, that's something we've been talking about, me and you, Thermal, especially.
Okay. I see that +3 vehicle weapon upgrade on the way, and it's, he doesn't have any starports. But, we've seen... I feel like I've seen enough pros, perhaps mistakenly. Certainly that could be the case. But sometimes, we see them get +1 vehicle weapons. The game's really dull, boring, very even. And then, they're like, okay, starport time. And they go into ship weapons. What is your opinion on reaching for the +2 vehicle weapons versus going right into the ship, and then ship weapons or ship armor?
Yeah, so I actually really think that getting +2, at least +2 vehicle weapons, is actually better. You actually notice the difference. You definitely notice the difference to +2 against +1 tanks. I think some of the issue there is more so like if you're playing heavy Ravens, like how much are your tanks really going to do at that point?
Yeah.
But then also too, like your Ravens don't have attacks, capabilities. So what are they going to do? I guess it's for the Vikings, but then how many Vikings do you have? And like then you have the whole. Some people play Viking Liberator, and some people play Viking Raven. And then maybe the Viking Liberator. That's where you want to have, or you prefer the quicker +1 upgrades for air as opposed to getting the +2 tanks. I do think though that getting +2 on your tanks and then switching into air upgrades is, I think that's ideal. And you definitely do notice a difference between +1 and +2, very noticeable. In the engagements where the tanks are able to pop off. So that's what I think. But I guess in this case, if you're playing like the way time is, you definitely just want to get +3 tanks. You can even have gone armor actually. I think it would have helped too. But yeah, it's just. I don't know. I think that getting the air upgrades after +2 is just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Those engagements.
Well, it reduces the kill shot of the Marines.
Yeah.
Tanks take less to kill them, so it does seem really important. Like I said, it could just be a consistent mistake, or they really believe that they're going to move on to Mass Raven pretty quickly. But then, same topic. I mean, very noticeable difference with the tanks. Very noticeable because the kill shot. Vikings, very much overkill units. Would you say that +1 chip weapons has a dramatic effect on those battles? Or is it more about like positioning, who shoots first, and just who has more numbers?
I would say +1 does help. I definitely think you can win. If you have less Vikings, if you have +1, you definitely will win a fight. Opponent has more Vikings, but without +1, it's definitely if I have way more Vikings or significant larger Viking count and I don't have the upgrades, but you do, I probably would still win that fight. At that point, it would be a numbers difference because +1 doesn't make that much of a difference. In those kinds of situations, but in those little skirmishes where maybe the difference is only in a handful of Vikings, the +1 is definitely noticeable. After that, it depends on positioning too. You're right. For example, like if I'm able to siege my tanks close, like let's take a look at this base for example. If I'm able to put my tanks just close enough here to start hitting this command center, and your tanks, maybe have to reposition or come up here, then at that point, I don't even really need the Vikings too much either. I could probably kill this base, or kill a handful of workers, and then maybe use a few scanners for this, but I'm able to do the damage without relying entirely on my Vikings. As opposed to, let's say I'm here, and now I have all my tanks here, and you have all your tanks here, and then that's when you really need the air. So winning the air battle is what really counts there, so you can retain the vision and continue pushing forward. So I think that's where the difference is, and where like positioning really matters. You might even see this. I do this a lot sometimes too. If I scan my opponents here, and I want to kill this base, I'll even just pick up my tanks and medevacs and boost them in here, just so that I'm way closer. And then I kill this, and then they bleed out maybe some stuff here. So I think it just depends on the situation. I think if you're on the defensive, positioning is a really big thing, and then maybe if you're on the map, then it becomes like that kind of style, like war of attrition kind of thing. And it's like both players are rallying, their air units to the other side, and then trying to win that air battle. To be honest, it is pretty interesting to also see the whole Viking Liberator versus Viking Raven thing as well. That also makes a difference in these scenarios. Sometimes it's a bit easier to build the Liberators because you already have the reactors, right? You can have 4 Liberators come out. 4 Liberators for every 2 Ravens, let's say. So then you have that as well. But I think most people play Viking Raven. I can't even think of anybody. I feel like I saw Clown playing a lot of Viking Liberator. I mean, most of the European Terrans actually. But I do think Ravens are better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And then it's pretty interesting how close the game was, considering everything that happened. Yeah, and then he just kind of dies here. But I think this was ideally the game time wanted, and then I do think time is pretty good. I just think when it comes to playing the top players is a bit tough. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting to see though, how you can potentially win a game against Mario in TVT. There was that video Uthermal made. I think it was Bunny versus Mario. I think Bunny won against Mario in a TVT, something like that. So it's kind of interesting to
Yeah,
see.
that was a weird one though. I got it because I looked at the Illegal Act recently. I think that was the TSL game that I cast, and it was just more. It's a little more like Mario running headfirst into a cyclone. With a drop, so didn't really seem like the way, you know. I think what would be more interesting would be to see the GSL Super Tournament qualifiers. Cure won against them 2-1. I don't know if I remember if they were streamed or not, because I know someone was talking about it, but that might have been GSL. I don't remember.
Yes. So let me see. I know AlphaX got the replays actually. Shout out AlphaX. And I think they even casted it. I might be able to find it. Yeah, it's on YouTube actually.
Yeah, because it'd be great to see what the difference was. You know, and then also like what Cure could have changed in his late game, if there was any late games in that best of 3. Because he got clobbered every single time, and it felt like there was no winning, but there must be some way to do better than Maru.
There must be some way. Okay, I think I can stream it on YouTube. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I do have it. Okay, cool. Yeah. Share this. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, hold on. Yep.
Okay, cool. Oh, it's actually the same map even.
Oh, sweet.
Maybe we can kind of skip this a little bit. Okay, same openers. Nice. Actually, I was I think it was DreamHack Montreal in like 2019. It was like one of the first ones I went to, and then I was watching. Sarah was like watching somebody's VOD like right before he played him, and he was skimming through the game so fast, like insane. He's just like spamming the arrow key, and he's just like watching a 30-minute game in 3 minutes, and then already figuring out what it is that he needs to do. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot that Cure was it was Cure, wasn't it? He was like putting his buildings off. Maybe it was Beyond. Ah, gosh, there was like TVT and no wall, and I thought that was weird. Oh, it was a TVZ. You know what?
It was TVZ.
Yeah, it was. It was.
It was Cure. Yeah, he was doing that.
Yeah,
one,
one of them made sense because on Blackburn he like hid that he even had it, so it was kind of like a cool little panic moment, and then he could transition his add-ons without the Overlord really getting in. That made sense. But then there was like 2 other games where it really didn't take that much more effort for the Overlord to get in and see that, oh well, okay, it's just not a wall. And I wondered why.
I agree with that. I'm still wondering today. Actually, not gonna lie to you. I noticed that. I even tried it on myself, and I was like, I really don't understand this. Like Blackbird, yes, exactly. Like it makes sense, but on the other maps, I was like, okay, not really sure why. And sometimes it's like that. Like sometimes it really is like that. You know, you open some of these games, and it's like you're wanting to learn something, and you just can't understand like why they would do it this way or do it that way. It's funny, or even sometimes too, like you open a game and it's just like. This is like, oh, well, they lost 2 backs and the game's over. Thanks for the games, I guess.
Yeah. And was he the one that did like the 2 racks opener against like Dark's Pool First? I think it might have been Cure. Maybe it was Time. Anyways, I think we figured out why he was doing it, but it was so weird because it was on Glittering Ash. It was like the biggest map, and he just started like rallying his Marines forward. But he brought an SCV. And I was like, oh, he's probably looking to block the 3rd. But then I was like, Glittering Ash, is it that bad of a map for Zergs take the other 3rd? I don't know. There's some weird games this past week, actually. The Last Chance had a lot of like new things, actually, which is great because, you know, developing StarCraft is what we want, but I still got some question marks about it.
No, it's true. I agree, definitely. It's also, they're doing the same exact game, actually. They're building, 3 Reapers, 2 Hellions, Cyclone, Raven, and then and when you're doing some opener like this, then it just becomes like maybe one person builds 2 Cyclones, maybe one person, like right now Kira's tank is faster than Mari's first tank, and then there you go to the tank. So sometimes the differences, even though they're doing the same build, might come down to like X player has a little bit of a faster tank or something like that. Not that won't necessarily make that big of a difference or anything like that, but you know, who knows? It could. You know, maybe your tank's already late, and then you get supply block now. It's a little bit later, and then now suddenly your opponent is ahead of tank. Like it adds up there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mara takes a faster 3rd. He has a good Reaper Scout. Yeah, actually, it's pretty normal to just sack the Reapers here. Sometimes players will keep, if they open this way where they have numerous Reapers and Hellions, they might like leave some out on the map as opposed to just sacking him into the main. Or likewise, you could just sack one and then keep the rest. In this case, like that's how Mario did it. He just throws away one, but then he keeps the rest on the map vision. And then Kira's gonna take everything together. So there's like little differences like that kind of add up. And then I like the positioning from Kira too. I think this is like the I don't want to get stuck in my own base kind of thing. So let me just sit out here. Especially without map vision yet. So he's gonna go clear the other side. Choosing depot. And then faster 2 barracks from Mars, and no Vikings. So then that's where you start seeing that difference right there. I'm actually interested why you didn't build any Vikings. Blocks off the Reaper. Yeah, just rescouting again. This is very like normal early game TVT. It's really just like, oh, what does my opponent have, and what do I have, and how can I use what I have against them? I'm surprised no one built their base on location though. Mars Stim is a little bit late. He has the money for it too, actually. He's not building a tank. Okay, interesting. I feel like that's a bit uncharacteristic. Yeah, he's gonna have faster. So Mars gonna have faster bio, but if your opponent recognizes that you're down 2 Vikings, like that's when you wanna push across the map. Like if I know I have an air advantage, I would definitely go across the map. Also, this is actually a little bit nice right here. And this is so random, by the way. This kind of stuff happens all the time. You kind of forget even that they have the extra Reapers and Hellions.
Yeah.
Or you don't know where they are, and then they just like show up and kill a few workers and leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see it happens to everybody, not just me.
Yeah, Kira even kind of panicked. It looked like he like brought his units up first.
Like,
it was Hellions.
Interesting. But yeah, Kira's just like out on the map a lot more here. Oh, okay, now they're Texas third. Yeah, so actually the way Kira moving up that way, that's something that happens a lot in TVT, especially depending on the matchup. Because when you take your bases like this, you might concentrate too many tanks in front of your third command center, and not enough up here where Mari's Raven and Viking are flying towards. So that's how you can catch somebody out, and then maybe they lose a tank for free, and now all their tanks are sieged below. So that's again where like map vision becomes really important.
Yeah.
And then Mari's gonna check, and it just happens to walk into that stuff. So then that's a little bit. I don't want to say lucky, but could have been dicey at least. And then yes, so that's pretty normal there. That's something I would try to do as well, to be honest. Especially if I was playing somebody better. Might be able to like, I don't know, catch them with their pants down or something like that. That's very TVT like.
When you say better, how would you really? I mean, I guess it's depending on the player, but say I was like, well, Maru's better than Percival. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me, but are we, like, would you dumb it down to the mechanics, or are we talking, like, higher level stuff, like map vision and map presence and, like, intuition and build order choices? Or are we talking, like, this guy has 2 extra SCVs when Percival wouldn't?
I really think at that point, it depends on who you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, like, I don't know, maybe my build order choices aren't bad against Percival, let's say, but his understanding of the matchup is better than mine. So then maybe I said I'm not worried about the builds, but I'm worried about what I can do to maybe throw him off, or something like that. Yeah. Sometimes the differences are not even so much that mechanically in regards to how the builders flow, what builders you're choosing, or your opponent having 2 more SCVs than you do. Sometimes it's more so like maybe at a certain point his late game is better than mine, and I need to be able to maybe find a way to have a head start in that, or kill him before or something like that. So yeah, unfortunately, like, it does really depend on the player, to be honest, and who you're playing, and you kind of have advantages and disadvantages. Then there's like the style stuff too. Even like some people's style might be even more annoying to you, or have a harder time dealing with, as opposed to maybe somebody like maybe somebody who's more aggressive is harder for me to deal with than somebody who likes to play the late game, for example. Like that might be the difference too. Then there's, at least for me, like I'm actually like, like I'm not the best player ever. So even for me, like if I'm playing like here, for example, to me, at least in my head, he's better than me in like a lot of things, late game, understanding the game, all that kind of stuff. So then it's like, okay, maybe I'll just cheese him or something like that. Yeah. So that's where the bigger difference comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that too, actually, because yesterday I was playing the game. I think I hit Rogue. It was like some 6-8 barcodes there. And I was like, well, what do I do? Do I just choose them or do I just try to play the game? And then I played it out a game, and I felt like it went pretty well. So now I have like, oh, maybe I'll just keep doing that against better Zergs and see how that goes for me. So sometimes too, it could be a confidence thing, how you're feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
Like Mario points out too. Yeah, they was just chilling though. They were just fighting for map vision. That's interesting to see the difference.
I mean, this must go late game then. Well, I don't know if Cure wins this game. I think it was a 2-1, but
yeah, it was a 2-1. Yeah,
he must have won one late game against the guy.
It's so funny how different DBT can be. One game is like people are just running around with Marine Tank. The next game it's like, well, we're gonna have a duel, and I'm gonna add these 4 sensor towers. Good luck.
Yeah.
Should move out. I feel more comfortable if I was more in this position, just like being actually out on the map. I don't know. I really don't like being pinned back.
Yeah. Well, Maru's in the lead in general, so that's always nice.
True. Okay, good defense. Which I guess it's not too. You'll see people like take only the Marines and go one way, and keep all the tanks and the Vikings the other way. And it's like, oh, I have enough tanks to hold your push, and then I'll send the Marines up this way, and maybe I can do damage. That's also a really popular thing to do. Seen it twice now, actually. Because the tower.
When I asked Maru, like, what do you think Cure was doing wrong in the finals, he said that he was tracking me. He's just following my lead. And I was like, well, I didn't. It's really, these interviews are especially difficult because there's like 3 of us and we're talking through a translator, and obviously we're not like chums with any of the Korean players really, but whenever Maru answers, it's always like, come on, give it a little more, come on. But I did think it was apt. Like Cure was kind of following him. Maru was leading him by the nose, but I gotta figure that Cure is not. I feel like Cure would identify that pretty quickly, and they had 4 games for him to identify it, and he didn't really seem to ever do so. Do you think that that really comes down to the day? Because I think some other pros have kind of said like a misconception about professional gamers, like we're not the same every day. It's not a 90% day after day after day. It's like 90, 40, 50, 80, 100, then back down to 20. So did you say that Cure, not only maybe being a little bit nervous in the finals, given his history, it might just actually be a little waffly than we give him credit for? I would say he's a consistent guy, but against Maru, it seems like he falters at the sight of the giant like everyone else does. Yeah. Yeah.
So honestly, I do think that that's true. Sometimes it does come down to like the day. There's 2 things I do want to talk about. One thing is like mental blocks. I think those are really something that happens. I think you can have a mental block. I think if you play somebody who maybe recently was beating you a lot, or stylistically you struggle against, you might maybe like tilt a little bit quicker, a little bit harder. You might tell yourself like, oh, I always struggle against this person, like this might be tough, and that's not like really the situation you want to be in going into a finals or anything like that. So that's something that happens. Mental blocks. The other thing I want to say is like it could definitely be a confidence thing, and even more than that, like when I say like that each day does make a difference. I don't know if many people have noticed actually. And I'm not gonna say like specifically which teams have this, but there's some teams that have like sports psychologists, and some players actually have sports psychologists as well. And I actually had the sports psychology experience too for a few months. And a really big topic that at least I had with me was how do I stay consistent, like for the next month or like leading up to a tournament. How do I reach the best form I can right before the tournament and somehow make it last all throughout the tournament till the end. Um, and something that we talk about a lot is like having a routine and keeping things the same as possible. And sometimes when our routine gets thrown off, it actually throws off the way we play. Um, and I think it's kind of like sports, the real sports, or like I don't know, physical sports. Maybe it's a better way to say it. Or maybe if I sleep a few less hours, or maybe something goes off like that, I'm not mentally 100% there, and like that could make the difference.
Yeah.
And it's like you want to be able to like keep that routine. So yeah, that was a really big topic. I'm sure other players, who've had sports psychologists or coaches and shit, like regardless, are trying to figure that out. And maybe for Cure, like that's what happened. It could be something like that. Sometimes Twitch chat's more than just like, oh, Mario Rex here, LOL. So yeah, I think that's something that maybe is not talked about as much actually. It's how that factors into it.
Yeah.
But it would be definitely be nice to see Cure like maybe find his rhythm and stuff like that.
Well, it seems like this blow to the middle is what big difference.
Yeah, it could be that too, like just like running down the middle and holding this part with tanks, and maybe you don't see it ahead of time. Oh, actually, it was winning the air battle, but the missile makes a big difference actually,
Yeah.
especially with the auto turrets below. I'm pushing it here. Yeah, those. I actually had difficulty with that as well. When they siege right through the middle like that, on this map in particular, because you got to defend like the base on the left and the base on the right, and then it's like which one do they go for? And it's just like maybe you're just a few seconds behind, and then the tanks are like suddenly in your face, and then yeah, like this. This happens too. Yeah, not gonna lie, it can be pretty RNG. Especially, I think in all the mirror matchups, it's like that actually in their own ways.
Yeah.
The Mimi.
I mean, everyone gave a credit to PvP. I think that's still very tricky. TVT, I think, I feel like I haven't seen any build order losses. Like, oh, that guy just ran right into that cyclone that often. ZVZ, actually, a laser was pretty passionate that that's actually now the most random matchup. Obviously, there's a bit of bias in everyone, but I could see his point. ZVZ has gotten to be a very convoluted mess. So.
Yeah, I actually tried to watch it because I can't understand it. There was like when there was a lot of ZVC finals. No balance pun intended, but when there was ZVC finals, I actually kind of enjoyed watching those because I felt like there was some structure to them.
Yeah.
But recently there's quite a mess, and people just I hear like Lambo even like kind of like talking about that and ranting a little bit about that too. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's way more random than like PvP even.
Well, that's pretty sick.
I'm actually losing so many marine or tanks. Oh, that's pain. That'll do it too. Yeah, and then Q just has momentum here. He's like been on Mario's side of the map the whole game now. So it's like everything hurts there, just putting out everything. Yeah, and these situations too. Like sometimes you have no choice. Just like take everything and go across the map, and maybe you can find yourself in a similar spot to restabilize. But yeah, this is like I don't know. TVT is very either it's a mess in the beginning or it becomes like this late game Raven Viking situation, and like but I do think the early game is what makes the biggest difference. And when the early game does get a bit weird, I think it gets kind of difficult to figure out like who has what kind of advantage, who doesn't have that kind of advantage.
Okay.
And seeing how players respond to that, and yeah, it can really be down to like my opponent has one less tank and maybe a later or one less Raven, and then that's my opportunity to kind of like push across and be a lot more aggressive. I do feel like the Korean Terrans, if the tournament isn't going to be in prison, like might be more comfortable being aggressive in the early game, maybe more confident in the early game control. I see a bit more of that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, Yeah, good TVT breakdown. I got just a couple of last questions. Hopefully, won't take too long. Um, One, TVP. We're seeing a lot of kind of like the fake factory expands, like second supply depot goes down to block out the probe. You see that being a trend leading into Katowice? Is that something that's gonna last a little while longer, or is it a fad?
No, I think you're gonna see that. I think you're gonna see a lot of weird stuff too.
A lot of what?
I
Sorry?
think weirder stuff too.
Okay.
I think you're gonna see a lot of like of actual like those command centers in the base and taking them. I think you're gonna see um actual like one gas marine to like a factory. I don't know, TVT is always TVP has always been that weird spot. I think you're gonna see that, and you're gonna see 3 racks.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's kind of it there, especially at 3 racks. But yeah, like that kind of early game stuff is really to be able to like I just mess with the Protoss a little bit and maybe eke out a little bit of advantage. You know, EVA blocks are also really big now too.
Okay.
So I think everyone's playing a bit weird in TVP. Yeah, I agree.
All right. And then for Katowice, I know we don't have the bracket of the groups yet, but you're saying you're fairly close to Percival. Talk to Zaun. Is there anyone that any interesting storylines that you would know about? Do you think Percival is going to impress people more than they would think? Do you think that Ragnarok is actually going to pop off? Like any thoughts there?
Ragnarok, especially in the World Team League, did really well. I really do want to give some people some hype, but I honestly don't know how they're gonna do in an actual LAN, which I think makes this really interesting because that's when the nerves kick in, and like being in that experience, having that experience again. Maybe not per se for the Koreans because they are playing GSL like in the studio now.
Yeah.
But like if Ragnarok does have moments where he's in a good spot or he's in a good shape, and then he does beat some people that you would otherwise maybe not think he would be, or sometimes he just kind of flops, right? Like that kind of tends to be the thing that happens there. I think some of the Protosses are going to show up though. I think Hero is doing pretty good. I think Zaun is also doing really well. So I think some of the Protoss players are going to show up. Some of the Korean Protoss are going to show up. I think Percival is really good. Percival's like 6'5" on the Korean ladder, which is really good. It would be cool to see him pop off, of course, but again, like who knows? It is a bit of a tough tournament. Showtime also doing really good recently as well. I think he's like top 10 in the League now. It's like the second Protoss there. So also really cool. I'm actually really excited to see how he does because I think he's doing really well right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I think the pro players are going to show up actually, which I think is kind of cool because they have been like kind of dying in the tournaments a bit early. I will say, as much as I hate TVP, I'll put that aside. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it's true. I think they're going to show up in a good way though. In a good way.
Cool. Any thoughts on Neeb? I feel like he's.
Actually, Alex took a break for a little bit recently. That's actually something that I think people didn't know. I didn't even know until I asked him. I was like, hey, you want to play some games? This is like during the holidays. I think maybe like end of November. I think like this. Yeah, actually, no, it was in December. It was like maybe a week or two before Christmas. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm not playing a game right now. I'm taking a break. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I haven't been playing him on ladder either. So I don't know how much he's playing, actually. I cannot tell you. But he did take a break, and I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't know. It was like the middle of the year, but
yeah. Oh, okay, all right. I mean, I know he's done similar stuff in the past. I think his BlizzCon where it was like the Fist of Neeb, and he almost made it through, but Rogue like group cursed him. I think he had taken a month break before that too, because like his manager was telling me, he's like, I'm a little worried. I'm not gonna lie. And he did pretty well. He was just like a really hard group, right? So I don't know, like 50-50 and whether that's a good thing.
Yeah, breaks can be good. Definitely refreshed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really can't say like what Alex is up to.
Yeah. All right. Well, still some good information. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, this guy doesn't play StarCraft. He's going to fucking suck.
Yeah.
A little bit nicer, but just be like, yeah, it's a bit of a mystery. No one really knows where he's at. So cool to know. So thank you again for this. Really appreciate your insight. It's always valuable to hear it kind of from your own words, and then I can kind of honestly steal it and be like, well, go blame that pro. If I just say something, people are like, well, you know, you're okay, and I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's okay. Definitely, if things go south, definitely put the blame on me. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's actually a lot of fun talking about StarCraft, of course.
Yeah, cool. All right, like I said, just give me your PayPal whenever you want, and I'll probably continue doing this throughout the year. We'll see what happens next year in StarCraft, but yeah, if you're up for it, I'll hit you up.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
Alrighty then, catch you later.
Bye.